In China, a haunting phenomenon known as RottenTail Kids is exposing the harsh realities of the country's education and employment landscape. As millions of young graduates struggle to find jobs in a shrinking market, their stories, like that of a young woman from a prestigious Beijing university who tragically starved to death in her apartment, where her body was discovered about 20 days after her passing, have sent shockwaves across the nation. Once hailed as the pride of her hometown, her fate underscores a broader crisis fueled by systemic failures, economic downturns, and an education system criticized for molding obedient slaves rather than independent thinkers. We'll cover all this in today's bulletin. Let's dive in. It's all covered in today's China Truths. The RottenTail Kids phenomenon. How the CCP's education system creates willing slaves. On August 16, 2024, Xi'an homeowners shared the story of a 33-year-old woman from a poor village in the Ningxia Autonomous Region. A graduate of a prestigious 211 university in Beijing, she dedicated herself to pursuing civil service jobs, but, despite repeatedly scoring first in written exams, she consistently failed the interviews. Nearly a decade after graduation, she remained unemployed. In April this year, the woman moved to Xi'an to seek work and rented an apartment. Her mother borrowed 10,000 yuan, about $1,411, from villagers to cover the rent. After May 20th, she stopped leaving the apartment, and there were no signs of cooking inside. By late June, a foul smell emanated from the apartment, and her body was found decomposed. The woman is just one of millions of graduates unable to find employment in China today, a group now referred to as RottenTail Kids. According to a Reuters report, the term RottenTail Kids has gained popularity on Chinese social media, likening graduates who remain jobless despite years of hard work to the millions of unfinished homes, or rotten-tail buildings, that have burdened China's economy since 2021. This summer, a record 11.79 million university graduates entered a sluggish job market, as the economy struggles with the real estate crisis, the aftermath of COVID-19, regulatory crackdowns on key sectors, and policies favoring new quality productivity. Official data shows that in July, the urban youth unemployment rate for ages 16 to 24 rose to 17.1%, the highest this year, excluding students still in school. Analysts suggest this figure may underrepresent the true scope, potentially hiding millions of jobless individuals in rural areas. In June 2023, after youth unemployment reached a historic 21.3%, Chinese authorities stopped releasing youth unemployment data and later changed the criteria to exclude students. Layoffs have extended across sectors, including major companies like Tesla, IBM, and ByteDance, and even government jobs once seen as secure. Last year, Beijing cut 5% of central government positions, and provinces like Hunan and Shandong have reduced thousands of jobs. The gig economy in China is growing rapidly, with over 200 million people in flexible employment, representing 14.3% of the workforce, but also facing issues of oversupply. Cities have warned against becoming ride-hailing drivers due to market saturation. Reports indicate more than 70,000 graduate students in China are working as delivery drivers. Sociologist Yao Lu of Columbia University estimates about 25% of Chinese graduates aged 23 to 35 are underemployed. In March, China's Minister of Human Resources and Social Security, Wang Xiaoping, noted a severe shortage of frontline skilled workers, while high-skilled talents needed for new industries remain scarce. An anonymous Chinese economist told Reuters that many of China's nearly 48 million university graduates begin their careers with low salaries and contribute minimally in taxes over their lifetimes, describing it as a significant waste of human capital, though not a lost generation. Faced with job market rejections, unemployed youth in China are sharing survival tips for coping with long-term unemployment, with social media tags like unemployment, unemployment diary, and being fired amassing 2.1 billion views on Xiaohongshu, a Chinese platform similar to Instagram. Causes of unemployment in China. The RottenTail Kids phenomenon highlights the difficulties many graduates face in finding work. former Chinese media person Zhao Lanjian told Vision Times that the high unemployment rate in China has pushed millions of university graduates into employment difficulties. Despite having high educational qualifications, many are forced to accept low-paying jobs, while some young people have reluctantly returned to their hometowns to become full-time children, relying on their parents for support. He told the Vision Times, "If things continue this way, young people will either keep lying flat, or, like the female graduate from Ningxia, take their own lives, or they will rise up against this unfair system." The woman's father, who traveled to Xi'an to handle his daughter's funeral, believes that her failure in the civil service exams was due to unfairness, reasoning that if even the top scorer wasn't hired, it must have been because she came from a rural family without connections, and the position was taken by someone with better connections. He remarked that his daughter was the hope of the entire family and the village. The landlord, on the other hand, felt that the woman was overly fixated on passing the civil service exams and could sense the immense pressure she was under. Zhao believes that while China may appear unified under the CCP's authoritarian rule, it is internally riddled with irreconcilable divisions. He said, "I have many classmates working in public security, the procuratorial system, the judiciary, and the government, and they are among my WeChat contacts. To me, they are like zombies. They cannot perceive the distortions and perversions in Chinese society. They benefit from the sweat and toil of the people, and many come from backgrounds similar to that of the woman who starved to death in Ningxia. If she had survived and joined the CCP system, she might have become one of them. This is an inevitable outcome of a society built on state ownership with no way to escape. The government, state-owned enterprises, and the military have long been entrenched in nepotism, leading inevitably to severe opposition and division between officials and ordinary people. More than 10 years ago, while I was visiting a certain country for an extended period, a classmate from the domestic procuratorate system reached out to me. We had a deep bond from our school days. When I casually mentioned topics like ideology and rights in my WeChat messages, he couldn't handle it at all. He thought I was already possessed and beyond saving. His understanding of what is normal in China is that China must detach itself from certain terms used in human society. Over a decade ago, I was also very disappointed with the situation depicted in the media in China. At that time, I did not have the level of awareness I have now. Back then, my values were already worlds apart from those of my closest classmates, and one can only imagine the extent of the division now. He added, Chinese society is torn apart by these huge, intersecting chasms. The only unity in China is the overall prison inside the Great Firewall. The essence of the Chinese education system. Zhao Lanjian describes the Chinese education system as a slave training system aimed at molding individuals into obedient servants of the Communist Party. He explains that the system has, for the past 70 years, focused on shaping citizens into socialist cogs and stepping stones. Zhao points to the recent case of a graduate in Ningxia who starved to death, suggesting she believed her death was aligned with the party's will and viewed as a form of patriotism and martyrdom. He notes that due to this system, many wealthy families, including leaders of state-owned enterprises and high-ranking officials, send their children abroad for education. Zhao contrasts this with Western education, which he says focuses on cultivating independent thinkers, while China's system emphasizes obedience. He adds that even those who study in democratic countries often return to China better equipped to succeed within the CCP's framework, having set aside Western values of faith and kindness. Zhao also refers to China's education system as the largest multi-level marketing scheme in the world, comparing it to a pyramid structure. He expresses concern that Chinese universities are producing delivery workers and food couriers, with graduates spending decades trapped in debt from tuition fees, loans, and housing. He attributes this to broader social crises and instances of self-harm among youth. However, Zhao sees hope in individuals like Fan Yirong and Yan Zhongjian, young people in China who have spoken out against the current regime and called for leadership changes, though they are now detained or unreachable. He believes that the phenomenon of RottenTail Kids is not the result of individual actions but is rooted in the broader education system that systematically produces conforming individuals. According to Zhao, addressing these issues requires changes at the highest levels of the social system, but acknowledges the high cost involved. He warns that without a shift in ideological understanding, incidents like the starving graduate from Ningxia will continue, and mere measures like installing self-harm prevention nets on bridges cannot address the underlying social and educational distortions. He draws comparisons with post-World War II Germany and Japan, where ideological shifts led to rapid societal development. However, in China, due to the existence of the Communist Party, mistakes cannot be properly recognized and corrected, as the party clings to its power. The errors of the Cultural Revolution, the Great Famine that led to the deaths of millions, and the brutal persecution of Falun Gong have not been corrected, causing China to stray further and further down an evil path. Zhao concludes, the case of the starving female graduate in Ningxia is a concrete example of the level of evil in Chinese society. If I share this news with many people in my WeChat friend circle, I will be blocked by them. He added that the majority of Chinese people are still numb to this incident and wish to avoid facing reality. Similarly, events like the Cultural Revolution, the Great Famine, and the persecution of Falun Gong reflect deep-rooted societal issues that continue to impact China today. The Cultural Revolution, from 1966 to 1976. The Cultural Revolution was a socio-political movement initiated by Mao Zedong, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, in order to reassert his control over the party and the country. Mao believed that the CCP was becoming too bureaucratic and straying from its revolutionary ideals. The campaign sought to purge remnants of capitalist and traditional elements from Chinese society, targeting intellectuals, officials, and anyone considered to oppose Mao's vision. The Red Guards, a youth militia, were encouraged to attack figures of authority, destroy cultural artifacts, and close schools. The decade-long period led to widespread persecution, forced labor, public humiliations, and executions. The official death toll is uncertain, but estimates range from hundreds of thousands to millions of people. The Great Famine, from 1959 to 1961. The Great Chinese Famine, also known as the 3 Years of Natural Disasters, was one of the most devastating famines in human history. It resulted from a combination of poor weather and disastrous economic policies under Mao's Great Leap Forward, which aimed to rapidly transform China into a socialist society through industrialization and collectivization. These policies included forced grain requisitioning, the establishment of communal farms, and unrealistic production targets. Mismanagement, combined with natural disasters, resulted in severe food shortages. Famine spread across rural China, and it is estimated that between 15 and 45 million people died due to starvation and related causes, though exact figures are debated. The persecution of Falun Gong, from 1999 to present. Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, is a spiritual practice that emerged in China in the early 1990s, combining meditation, Qigong exercises, and a moral philosophy rooted in truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. Initially, it was well received by many in China and even supported by some government officials. However, by 1999, the Chinese Communist Party viewed the movement's rapid growth and independence from state control as a potential threat. The government banned the practice, labeling it as a heretical cult, and launched a nationwide campaign to suppress it. This campaign has been characterized by mass detentions, forced labor, physical and psychological torture, and organ harvesting from living Falun Gong practitioners. International human rights organizations continue to condemn the persecution, which persists to this day. The story of the woman from Ningxia is just one example among countless other situations in Chinese society. In a place where human rights and religious beliefs are disregarded and suppressed, it is difficult for people to achieve a stable and sustainable life. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.